The first time I walked into a ghost town, I thought I had stumbled into the afterlife. The wind whistled through broken windows, doors banged against empty saloons, and the only footsteps were my own echoing in the dust. Once, this place had been alive with shouts, laughter, gunfire, and the clink of gold dust on wooden tables. Now it was silent except for the ghosts of the gold rush. I was there when these towns were born, when gold fever burned hotter than fire, and I lived long enough to see them die, abandoned to time. I was just a young man in 1849 when the world turned upside down. News of gold in California spread like wildfire. Men dropped everything. Farms, shops, families, and rushed west, chasing dreams of fortune. They called us the 49ers. Some sailed around Cape Horn, some trudged across Panama. Some, like me, rode wagons over mountains and deserts. The journey itself killed thousands, but those who survived arrived in San Francisco to find a city exploding overnight. Canvas tents gave way to wooden shacks. Ships were abandoned in the bay, their crews fleeing to the mines. Gold fever had no mercy. At Sutter's Mill in Coloma, where James Marshall first spotted that fateful glint of gold in 1848, I remember the frenzy in the air. Families abandoned plows mid-furrow. Sailors deserted their ships mid-voyage. Shopkeepers left counters unattended. Men ran to the rivers like bees to nectar. And for a while, fortunes truly did spill from the earth. The rivers shimmered with flecks. Nuggets as large as walnuts appeared in pans. Hope was everywhere. I worked the rivers first, panning for flakes in freezing water. My hands cracked and bled. My back ached. But each glimmer in the pan felt like hope. Some days yielded nothing, some days a fortune. I saw men gamble away their finds by nightfall, fortunes lost on a single card game. I saw murders over gold dust spilled on the floor. But it wasn't just miners who thrived. Merchants selling shovels, picks, boots, and whiskey often earned more than those of us clawing at the riverbeds. Towns sprouted overnight along every promising vein. Places like Bodie, Deadwood, Bannack, and Virginia City began as clusters of tents, then grew into streets lined with saloons, dance halls, and general stores. The smell of sweat, smoke, and cheap liquor filled the air. At night, music spilled from open doors, mingling with curses, gunshots, and the clatter of boots. For a time, each town felt like the center of the world. Virginia City became a legend after the Comstock lode was discovered in 1859. It wasn't just gold but silver, mountains of it. The streets glittered with wealth, mansions rose, theaters opened. Mark Twain himself worked there for a time as a reporter, scribbling tales of gamblers, rogues, and sudden fortunes. But I also saw tunnels collapse, suffocating men in the dark, and entire fortunes vanish in bad investments. For every winner, 1,000 losers trudged away penniless. Life was harsh. Food was overpriced and often spoiled. A single egg in the early days could cost more than a day's wages. Boots wore through in weeks, leaving men limping over rocky ground. Clothes stiffened with dust and sweat until they cracked. Baths were rare, lice and fleas common companions. Most miners slept on rough planks or cold ground, dreaming of riches that almost always slipped through their fingers. Not all who came west sought gold in the rivers. Some brought skills to serve the boomtowns. Women opened laundries, bakeries, and boarding houses. I remember one woman in Deadwood who sold pies to miners for a fortune, earning more than her husband who toiled in the hills. Others became madams, owning entire saloons, wielding more power than many sheriffs. Children ran errands, collected bottles, or sang for pennies in the streets. Gold fever infected every soul, no matter their age or station. But prosperity bred chaos. Lawmen were scarce and vigilante justice ruled. I witnessed lynchings under the cold stars, crowds cheering as suspected thieves swung from gallows. The saying went, "Here lies so-and-so hanged by mistake." In Bannack, Montana, the sheriff himself, Henry Plummer, was discovered to be the leader of a murderous gang. Justice, when it came, was swift and merciless. The boom always carried the seed of its own end. Rich strikes drew thousands, but veins ran dry just as quickly. When the gold thinned, so did the people. Saloons emptied, shops boarded up, schools closed. Families packed their wagons and moved on to the next rumor of riches. What remained were skeletons of towns. Weathered boards, rusting equipment, silence where life once roared. I remember Bodie most of all. In the late 1870s, it was wild beyond imagination. 20 mills crushed or day and night, fires lit the sky red, and nearly 10,000 souls filled its streets. "Goodbye, God, we are going to Bodie," children whispered. A place so violent that even gamblers carried shotguns. Prostitutes lined wooden balconies. Preachers shouted on street corners, and gunfights erupted daily. I walked its streets when money flowed like whiskey, and I walked them again when the last residents left, leaving only broken glass and memories. Lesser-known stories lingered too. In the Nevada town of Rhyolite, built on a desert promise, they even had electric lights, a stock exchange, and a 3-story hotel. For a few brief years, it seemed invincible. But when the mines failed, the population collapsed from thousands to a handful. By 1920, even the post office was gone, and the Grand Hotel stood hollow, windows staring blankly into the desert. Tombstone, Arizona, rose on silver rather than gold, but it too carried the fever. I was there when the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday faced down outlaws at the O.K. Corral. Gunfire echoed between clapboard walls, and the myth of the Wild West was born. Yet when the mines flooded and the silver veins played out, Tombstone nearly joined the ranks of the dead. Its ghosts still walk Allen Street after sundown. Mining itself grew darker with time. Hydraulic mining blasted entire hillsides apart with high-pressure water cannons, leaving valleys buried in mud, forests stripped bare, and rivers poisoned with mercury. The rush for riches scarred the land as surely as it scarred men's souls. Crops downstream withered, fish died, and native tribes lost what little remained of their hunting grounds. The wealth was temporary, but the wounds remained. Fires were another curse. In Bodie, whole blocks burned to ash in a single night. In Virginia City, flames roared through the streets, consuming mansions and saloons alike. Epidemics followed close behind: smallpox, cholera, influenza. Doctors were few, graves many. And still people came, drawn by the rumor that maybe, just maybe, the next strike would be theirs. Ghost towns were not just casualties of greed. They were testaments to human hope and desperation. Entire companies invested millions in equipment that now lies rusting in gullies. Chinese immigrants, who worked for lower pay, were often driven out by angry mobs once the gold dwindled. Their neighborhoods burned. Native tribes saw their lands stripped, rivers poisoned with mercury from sluices and stamp mills. The hunger for gold consumed everything in its path. At night in these dying towns, the silence is thick. I once sat alone in an abandoned saloon, moonlight slanting through shattered glass, and imagined the poker games that had once thundered there. The laughter, the curses, the deals made and broken. It was as if the walls still remembered. Some swear the towns are haunted, that miners who died for a few ounces of gold still wander, unwilling to leave their fortune behind. Cannot say, but I have felt the weight of history pressing close, and the ghosts of ambition whispering in the wind. Now I am an old man, and I have seen dreams rise and fall like the sun. Gold built cities, but it also left behind hollow shells. Today, when I wander those streets, Bodie, Rhyolite, Bannack, Virginia City, Tombstone, I see not just ruins but monuments to human hunger. Wooden facades lean against the wind, rusted carts sit frozen in place, and tumbleweeds roll where once children played. The ghost towns of the gold rush are America's forgotten monuments, not of glory, but of impermanence. They remind us that wealth can vanish overnight, that towns can crumble into dust, and that the only thing more enduring than gold is the memory of those who chased it. I was there when the saloons roared, when the gold glittered, and when the silence fell. I walked through the fever of fortune and now through the quiet of ghosts. And I will tell you this: the wind that whistles through broken shutters is not empty. It carries the voices of the past, the songs, the gunshots, the prayers, and the curses. The ghost towns are not dead. They are waiting, whispering, remembering.